Okay, so now I've cached the points and I've applied the transform pieces. I just use the default settings for this. That should be fine. And it requires a rest point. So what you can do is just freeze the first frame of your sim so that and use that as a rest point. So now we have this. So this way we can just save the points and the cache is going to be really small. And also one more thing, like just to make sure that you have, when you do this assemble up here, make sure that you transfer the attributes, fruit type and orient. Otherwise you're going to have issues with the way the fruits are rotated around. So now we have this. Let's jump into Solaris. There's one or two things we need to fix. So I'm setting up a null here to take the mesh from right before it goes into the sim. So this is our overlap check. So this is the overlap check, and we don't need that for Solaris. And then what we need to do is we will need to change some attribute names from. So we need to change the velocity attribute from V to velocities, because that's it seems that that's what Karma expects. So we have that changed, and then we have these points that we're going to take into the sim. So I am going to now jump into Karma. So let's go to the stage. So you can go to the stage, so not the shop. So you can go to this stage context, or you can also just make a stage here and set it up that way. Or you can even set it up inside your geo, but that can get confusing. So I recommend you do it on the object context or just use the normal stage context. So now in Solaris, let's bring in all the things we need. So first we'll start with the SOP import. I'm gonna name this fruits. Go to SOP path and set it to our out sim mesh. So we got all the fruits in, and then we want to go down here and set it to the primitive destination and send back primitives to create xforms. And then we need the instances. So if we just drop down instancer, then you need to dive into the instancer and put your points in there. So we have our points from the sim. So we're going to do object merge. And then I'm going to bring in those sim points. And then I'm going to drop in null just to get that organized. Okay, so there's a couple of settings we need to check on the instancer, but let me just plug this in and see what happens. So you see now it's putting this whole structure of geometry on each point, which is not what we want. So what we need to do is in here, we need to tell it which one it is, right? So what you can do is you can drag the fruits from here and you can just set this as, actually you can just do this fruits, and then we want all the fruits. So if you do that, right, so now it's got all the fruits. And the second setting you want to turn on is if you go down to here, the index, we want to use the name attribute. So now that should be functioning properly. There you go. So now we have it as it should be. Right, so let's bring the rest of our stuff. So what else did I miss? Anything? So yeah, so this just tells it to use in UST everything has like a path and address, like a folder. So this is just saying go to the fruits and use all the geometry in there. So if you name this something else, then you would put that name in here and use that. So we're gonna just drop in a few more bits of geo. So let's bring in our bucket. This is a render bucket we need. So let's merge these together. So also set up a camera. So the way you can also, there's a camera, scene import camera, or you could just go here and set up your viewport and just control click, and that will make you a camera as well. So we got a camera, and fruits falling in. So it's be nice to have a little backdrop. So let me also do, so you can make you can make geometry in here as well directly using the sub create. So you can so you can like go dive in there and create like a grid. And if you go back up, then you see you have this grid. So you can do some geometry. You can do quite a lot of geometry creation inside stage, which is the way some people work, but we're still working at soft level and bringing them in. So I'm just gonna copy this backdrop that I made. It's just something really simple. It's just a grid with some polybevel. Okay, so now we have our grid. Just gonna move that a bit so it covers the whole thing. Okay, so now on to the material creation. Actually, let's do. Okay, so for Solaris, you need to first create a library and then you can assign the materials. So I'm gonna create a library first, and then you can either use the assign material or you can use the material linker, which is the newer way and is also a bit easier to use. So I'm going to use material linker for that. So let's just set up some simple materials first and then we can add to them. So we need at least how many fruits do we have? We have apple. We need at least 5. All right, so I'm going to make a Karma material builder and I'm going to make 5 of these. Just going to call this apple. Okay, so I've made a base material for all of them. They're all just gray at the moment, but I just like to do this so then I can just link them up here, and that is easier to do. So with the material linker, what you need to do is first you have your materials on the side here, and then you have your objects. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the material in there, and then you can drag the geometry that you want to apply to over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go apple and we're going to do asterisk. So it's going to apply the apple to all the fruits that have the name S. So it's going to apply this material to all the objects that have apple on there. And the same way we're going to do avocado. It's going to go down to the avocado, drop that up here, and then just double click on that and you can modify that so everything with the word avocado. And the backdrop, it's just gonna be easy. So I forgot to name that. Let me just name this. So the backdrop goes on the backdrop. The bucket goes. Okay, so using that technique, I've applied all the materials over, and let's just go to the framework, see all of them, and I'm going to just put some different colors on them just to see that they're working. So I'm going to drop a dome light here. So just to check that the materials have been applied correctly, I'm going to dive in and just give these some random colors. So that's all your apples, kiwi green, the avocados. Okay, so I seem to have missed one fruit. Actually, that's the pomegranate. Doesn't seem to have been applied. So let's apply the pomegranate as well. Let's go to linker. Oh yeah, so the flag was off here. That's why it wasn't showing up. So now I should have pomegranate. I can just grab. You can also just type this whole thing manually, but this is easier to do for me anyway. Okay, so definitely all the materials have been assigned properly. You can see that, and I'm just gonna do the other two as well. Just gonna give the backdrop some kind of off-white color, and the bucket, let's give it darker. Okay, so now we know that everything is assigned properly, and now we can continue on with the material building. Okay, so let's start with the apple. So before we do the materials, you might be working in Aces. So this is all set up already to be worked in Aces. So all you need to do is turn on this color correction here. Then you get this tab underneath, and then you just set that to Aces SDR. So that means you're looking at a Aces transformed viewport. And let's make the light a bit brighter. Okay, great. So now let's set up the textures. So starting with the apple. So I'm going to use this. There's a few ways to bring in textures, but I'm going to use this USD UV texture. I'm going to use this USD UV texture. So I'm going to load in my textures from the assets folder. So we have this Aces version, so I'm just going to load that in, and then I'm going to plug the RGB into the base color. And that should, yeah, that's, we've got our apples on, and then I need all the other textures as well. So let's start with, I'm going to get the roughness, and that goes into the specular roughness. And then make sure that you set this to, I mean, it's supposed to do it automatically, but if your files aren't named in the right format, it won't, sometimes might not understand what color space to use. So I'm setting this one to raw. So all your black and white maps, your data should be raw, and this is normally you would have a sRGB texture that it would convert, but we already have an Aces one, so we just leave that at auto. And then for the final thing, we need the normal map. So the normal map, we're using this OpenGL normal map. I think sometimes when you download objects from Polyhaven, they come with two different types of normal maps. So you want the OpenGL one. And then for that, you need an extra node, so the material X normal map, and that you plug in your texture in there, and then the output goes into geometry here and normal. So that should all be good now. So if I look at my apples, they are looking like apples. Okay, great. So in the same way, I'm just going to do the other textures. I'm going to pause the video. There's nothing special that you need to do here. Just make sure that you use the right color spaces for your specular maps. And if you have a displacement map, that will go here. So in the new updated version, you can set some certain render properties per material. So like the sampling and the diffuse quality and things like that. So if you decide, if you're using some other complicated geometry and you need to optimize some of your renders, you can use these settings over here. All right, so I'm just going to go through and fill up all these. Pause the video. So I've gone in and applied all the materials. It's just the diffuse into the base color, the specular into the roughness into the roughness, and the normal map to the normal map. So it's pretty standard stuff here. So one thing we might want to do is subdivide the geometry at render time. I mean, from this distance it looks pretty decent, but just in case you want to get in closer, so what we're gonna add is can add a mesh edit. Okay, so one thing that you might want to do is subdivide these at render time. So you can use the mesh edits, and then if you drag, so you have your instancer, you have prototypes, and then you have fruits. If you just drag this from the fruits up here, then what you need to do is you need to tell it to take all the items in the fruit, and then you want all the items that are called fruit star, and then you want the mesh _0. So because if you look here, each fruit has the fruits prototype and everything in it, so that's going to cover apple, all these numbers. And then inside that we want everything inside that, and inside that we want mesh 0. So if you had a specific one, you could just drag it from here, but we're trying to do it all at once. And then what you need to do is set up and this one. We're going to just use this one. So that is going to give you subdivisions at render time. Doesn't look that much different here because it was already quite high, but it's definitely gone up a bit. So you have that thing, and then finally we want to do karma render scene. So if you type in karma, it'll make you render settings, and it'll make you output ROP as well. So I'm going to feed that in there, and at the moment I'm getting an error. So you have your viewport settings and you have your render settings here. So here I've set it to CPU, and here it sets to XPU. That's why it's having an issue. So I'm just going to set this both to. And for the first time, sometimes when you do this, you get this with Karma XPU, you get this initializing because it has to compile all the textures. So it only does this for the first time, and after that it should be quite fast when you turn it on and off. Okay, so the other things let's look through the camera, and we want motion blur. So let's just go up to the frame. It's working. I go to camera effects, motion blur. So we need to turn on motion blur. We need to turn on this instance motion blur here. So at the moment, in the render settings, we want to check if the motion blur settings are all correct. So let's go to a frame where there's bound to be motion blur motion. So around here, and we just save. And so see here, we have this instance motion blur. So at the moment it's no, so we want it on. It's going to take a bit, and see now we have motion blur. So we got motion blur working, and the rest of the settings I'm just leaving it. So I also have this denoiser on to clean it up a bit, but you can try without, and just if you know how to set up the Karma render settings, you can explore that further. And one last thing now, so the output is going to go to, at the moment it's going to the hip. Well, one thing important here is to make sure that you pick the right camera. So since we use the default name on the camera, it's picked it up, but sometimes when you bring in the camera it may not pick that, so you need to make sure that camera name is here, and you can either get it from the drop down, or you can just drag it from here. So if you show up here, you just drag that into there. If you found this useful, please leave us a comment, or if you had any suggestions, please let us know as well. And if you really liked it, please subscribe or give us a like, and we hope to see you soon again. Thank you. Goodbye.